Alright, buckle up, because Huxley's Brave New World kicks off with a crazy ride into a future that's equal parts shiny and creepy. Chapters 1 and 2 throw us headfirst into this ultra-controlling, vibes-only society where humanity has traded individuality and freedom for instant happiness and low-key brainwashing. Think of it as a mashup of The Sims, TikTok trends, and a super dystopian episode of Black Mirror. So, first stop, the Hatchery and Conditioning Center. It sounds like some high-tech place where cool stuff gets made, but nope, it's where people get manufactured. Yup, humans are no longer born the old-fashioned way, instead, they're cooked up in literal test tubes. Right away, we meet this guy called the director, who's basically the CEO of human creation, and he's giving a tour to a group of eager young interns. He's all smug, showing off how efficient and organized their baby-making assembly line is. It's wild. They've got this process called the Bokanovsky method, where a single fertilized egg gets split into dozens of identical embryos. It's like they're cloning people en masse to make them into factory workers or something. And if that doesn't scream dystopia, I don't know what does. Anyway, the director is flexing about how they've streamlined society by predetermining everyone's roles before they're even born, or decanted, as they call it, because wombs are so passé in this world. Each person gets assigned a caste, from alpha to epsilon. Alphas are the bougie elites with big brain energy, while epsilons are the worker bees doing all the dirty jobs. And how do they make sure everyone's chill about their assigned fate? Science, baby. They literally mess with the embryo's development to make sure they fit their roles perfectly. Want an epsilon who doesn't question their life as a janitor? Just deprive them of oxygen while they're still an embryo. It's dark science at its worst. But wait, it gets weirder. This society doesn't just control how people are born, it also decides how they think. Enter conditioning. The director leads the interns to see the hypnopedic department, and it's here we learn that babies and kids are brainwashed 24/7 using sleep teaching. Imagine falling asleep listening to a podcast on loop, except instead of random crime stories, it's the government whispering things like everyone belongs to everyone else, and spending is better than saving. It's like a toxic motivational speaker living rent-free in your head forever. The goal? Make sure everyone loves their caste and never gets salty about their situation. If you're a gamma, you'll happily gamma it up, and so on. Oh, and they really do mean that everyone belongs to everyone else line. Relationships? Nope. Marriage? Forget it. In this world, people are encouraged to hook up with as many people as possible, and emotional attachments are basically outlawed. Love is seen as messy and inefficient, so why bother? It's like society decided to run on hookup culture 24/7 but somehow made it sadder. Back to the tour, though. The interns are wide-eyed and eating up all this propaganda like it's a 3-course meal. Then the director introduces them to this guy named Mustafa Mond, one of the big-shot world controllers. Mond is a total boss, charismatic, smooth-talking, and the ultimate hype man for this dystopia. He starts dropping some philosophical truth bombs about how the old world was full of chaos, wars, and people feeling sad. He's like, back then, people had freedom, but they used it to screw everything up. So, we fixed that by taking away choice. You're welcome. Mond's whole pitch is that this society is the GOAT because it's stable. No one gets too sad or too angry because they've literally erased the concept of emotional depth. Everyone has a purpose, and everyone's happy in their little box. Or at least, they're programmed to think they are. He's basically selling the idea that ignorance is bliss, and honestly, it's kind of terrifying how convincing he makes it sound. While all this is going down, we also get a closer look at how they condition people to love their caste. One scene has babies being conditioned to hate books and flowers. Why? Because epsilons and gammas don't need to be curious or distracted, they're supposed to focus on their menial jobs and nothing else. They literally set up an experiment where babies crawl toward books and flowers, and then they shock them with loud noises until they're terrified of anything intellectual or beautiful. It's like Pavlov's dogs, but way more twisted. And it's not just kids, they condition adults too. The whole society is addicted to this drug called soma, which is basically happiness in pill form. Feeling stressed? Papa Soma. Worried about existential dread? Soma's got you. It's like if antidepressants and TikTok's dopamine hits had a dystopian baby. The catch is that no one ever faces their problems or feels anything real. It's all just numb, empty contentment. Sounds fun, right? By the end of these chapters, you're left feeling both fascinated and horrified. On one hand, this society has eliminated war, poverty, and sadness. But on the other hand, they've also eliminated free will, love, and anything that makes life actually meaningful. It's like trading in your humanity for a lifetime supply of McDonald's Happy Meals. Sure, it's comfortable, but is it worth it? So, there you have it. Chapters 1 and 2 of Brave New World set the stage for a society that's polished on the outside but rotten at its core. It's all about control, conformity, and keeping everyone too drugged up to notice they're living in a nightmare. Honestly, it's kind of like if your favorite dystopian anime got mashed up with The Matrix and sprinkled with a little Wall-E dystopia aesthetics. Stay tuned, because this world is only going to get weirder and darker. Alright, let's talk chapters 3 and 4 of Brave New World. If you thought the first couple of chapters were already giving off high-key dystopian vibes, hold tight, because we're about to dive deeper into this slick but super shady society. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, but the onion is made of corporate-sponsored happiness and brainwashing. So let's break this down. The scene kicks off in the middle of this epic crossover of conversations. On one side, you've got Mustafa Mond, our smooth-talking world controller, delivering a TED talk to the hatchery newbies about why their whole society is the GOAT. Meanwhile, over at the playground, you've got kids casually playing super inappropriate games. Don't ask, it's exactly as gross as it sounds. And then we cut to Lenina chatting with her friend Fanny in a locker room. It's like the book is flipping through TikToks, switching from one combo to another, each one giving you a glimpse of how bizarre this world is. Mond's speech? Oh boy. It's one of those, hey kids, here's why freedom sucks and stability rules kind of rants. He's all, back in the old days, people had emotions and relationships, but it was messy AF, wars, heartbreak, too much drama. So we said, bye, Felicia to all that and created this perfect system instead. And by perfect, he means everyone gets their life scripted for them, so mad out of their minds, and conditioned to never think too hard about anything. Love? Cancelled. Art? Who needs it? Religion? Deleted. Honestly, Mond sounds like he's pitching the ultimate bland dystopian simulator, and the interns are eating it up like it's the next Fortnite expansion. Meanwhile, Fanny is giving Lenina some tea about her love life, or, more accurately, her lack of variety. See, in this world, having a steady thing is basically considered taboo. Everyone's supposed to date, or, well, hook up with everyone else. It's like a mandated Tinder matchathon. But Lenina's been seeing Henry Foster for a hot minute, and Fanny's like, girl, mix it up. Don't let people think you're catching feelings. Lenina's response? Total denial. She's all, nah, I'm just vibing with Henry. It's not that deep. Spoiler alert, it might be that deep. Now, here's where the chapter really gets spicy. Enter Bernard Marx, the guy who might as well have walking insecurity stamped on his forehead. Bernard is an alpha, so he's supposed to be one of the top dogs in this society, but the dude doesn't really fit the mold. He's shorter than the other alphas, which, in this superficial world, is basically a cardinal sin. People treat him like he's a total weirdo, and to be fair, he kind of is, but in a good way. Like, he actually thinks for himself, which makes him both fascinating and super awkward at the same time. Bernard overhears Henry and some brothers talking about Lenina, and let me tell you, it's gross. They're objectifying her like she's a new skin in Call of Duty or something, and Bernard is not having it. He's low-key, actually, high-key, crushing on Lenina, and the whole conversation makes him want to yeet himself into another caste system. This is the moment you realize Bernard is kind of the odd one out in this society. He doesn't buy into the whole everyone belongs to everyone nonsense, and he's not a fan of the constant soma parties and shallow hookups. He's basically the emo kid in a world full of Stepford clones. Fast forward to chapter 4, and things start to heat up. Lenina decides to shoot her shot with Bernard. She's all like, hey, so I heard you've got a trip to the Savage Reservation coming up. Mind if I tag along? Bernard is so shocked that someone like Lenina is even talking to him that he almost forgets how to human. He plays it coolish, but internally, he's freaking out. You can tell he's torn between being flattered and terrified because Lenina is, well, Lenina, hot, popular, and totally not his usual crowd. But then, we see Bernard's not-so-great side. Instead of just being chill, he goes full-on awkward loner mode. He's like, why would someone like you even want to hang out with me? Don't you think I'm weird? Lenina, bless her, doesn't really get it. She's all, nah, I just think you're interesting. Let's vibe. But Bernard can't let it go. He's so used to being the outsider that he can't even process someone liking him for who he is. Later, we get a glimpse of Bernard's life, and honestly, it's kind of rough. He's not into all the mindless fun everyone else seems obsessed with. Soma? Meh. Big social events? Hard pass. Instead, he spends his time brooding about how fake everything is. He's basically that one kid who listens to sad indie music in their room while everyone else is at a house party. But Bernard doesn't just want to be different, he wants to matter. He craves something real in a world that's about as deep as a kiddie pool. Meanwhile, Lenina is living her best life, or trying to. She hops into this flying car with Henry Foster, and they head off on a date that involves golf and, of course, Soma. It's clear that Lenina is all in on the world state's vibe. She doesn't overthink anything, and she's perfectly happy going along with whatever the system says. But the contrast between her carefree attitude and Bernard's existential dread sets up a major theme. Are you better off being blissfully ignorant, or should you risk everything to find something real? By the end of these chapters, the stage is set for some serious drama. Bernard is gearing up to visit the Savage Reservation. Lenina is caught in the middle of her follow-the-rules life and her growing interest in Bernard, and the cracks in this perfect society are starting to show. Beneath all the soma clouds and hypnopedic mantras, you can feel the tension brewing. It's like the calm before the storm, and you know things are about to get messy. So yeah, chapters 3 and 4 of Brave New World are all about peeling back the shiny, controlled surface of this dystopia to reveal the cracks underneath. On the outside, it's all sleek technology and happy faces, but dig a little deeper and you'll find people like Bernard who are quietly questioning everything. It's giving Major the Truman Show meets The Giver vibes, with a side of euphoria drama. Stick around, because this ride is just getting started. Alright, buckle up, because chapters 5 and 6 of Brave New World are basically like stepping into a dystopian episode of The Bachelor, but with fewer roses and way more creepy vibes. This is the part where Huxley flexes his imagination muscles and shows us just how twisted the perfect world can be. Let's dive in, and I'll make sure it's anything but boring. So, our boy Bernard Marks, the odd one out, the emo kid in a sea of conformists, is still trying to figure out how to exist in this weird, vibes-only society. But first, we get to peek into Lenina's life, because hey, she's important too, even if she's stuck in her brainwashed Barbie girl era. Chapter 5 kicks off with a scene that feels like it was ripped straight from some dystopian rave. Lenina and Henry Foster, her latest situationship, wrap up their game of obstacle golf, which is exactly as ridiculous as it sounds, and hop into Henry's helicopter. But wait, it's not just any boring oil chopper ride. They're cruising over a field of crematorium chimneys, where dead bodies are burned to fuel the city's energy grid. Casual, right? Lenina, ever the perfect product of her conditioning, is totally unbothered. She's all, at least we're contributing to society even when we're crispy ashes, while Henry agrees like a corporate yes-man. To make things weirder, they land at Henry's crib, have their perfect little date, and pop some Soma, the happy pills that basically turn your brain into a feel-good Netflix binge on steroids. They vibe to some synthetic music, probably something TikTok-worthy, and have themselves a very PG-13 time, which in this society is just another Tuesday. No strings, no emotions, just vibes. If Lenina had a Tinder bio, it'd be, looking for fun, no drama, must like Soma. Meanwhile, Bernard's out here on the struggle bus. He heads off to one of those solidarity services, which are like a dystopian spin on Sunday church, but with way more chanting and way less Jesus. Picture a room full of randos sitting in a circle, chugging Soma-laced drinks, and trying to catch a vibe with a creepy orgy-porgy chant. Bernard's trying, he really is, but he's just not feeling it. He's that one dude at the club who can't vibe with the music and spends the whole time awkwardly swaying in the corner. The whole thing is meant to make everyone feel connected to Ford, the society's version of a deity, but Bernard's like, nah, this ain't it. The man just wants to feel something real, which is kind of illegal in this world. Now, chapter 6 is where things get spicy. Bernard and Lenina go on a little outing, and it's clear from the jump that these two are a walking disaster. Lenina's all, can't we just have fun and pop Soma? And Bernard's over here monologuing about individuality like he's auditioning for a TED Talk. He decides to take her to the Savage Reservation, which is basically a theme park of people who live the old, messy, non-controlled way. You know, love, families, drama, the works. But before they head out, Bernard has to deal with his boss, the director, who casually drops a major piece of tea. The director starts reminiscing about the time he went to the reservation back in the day, and oops, he left someone behind. He doesn't say it outright, but the subtext is screaming louder than a reality show fight. Bernard's like, dang, that's messy, but he plays it cool because he's already on thin ice for not fitting in. The director, fed up with Bernard's weirdness, threatens to send him to Iceland, which is apparently the society's version of exile. But Bernard, in a rare moment of confidence, flips the script and heads to the reservation anyway. So, Bernard and Lenina hop on a helicopter to the Savage Reservation, and if you think Lenina had culture shock before, just wait. The reservation is the exact opposite of their cushy, controlled world. It's raw, chaotic, and full of, gasp, emotions. But before we get there, Bernard has a full-on panic attack when he realizes he forgot to get the signature to stay at the reservation. He freaks out like someone who forgot their wallet at a gas station 2 hours into a road trip. Meanwhile, Lenina is chilling, high on Soma, because of course she is. The girl's solution to everything is popping a pill and hoping for the best. Once they arrive at the reservation, Lenina's horrified. There are actual old people here, wrinkles and all, and babies crying, and people living their messy, unsupervised lives. For her, it's like stepping into a survival horror game with no respawns. But Bernard? He's eating it up. This is exactly the kind of chaotic energy he's been craving. He's like, finally, something real, while Lenina's in the corner dry heaving into her designer bag. They meet their guide, who's this no-nonsense dude who explains the customs and history of the reservation like a tutorial NPC. Bernard's fascinated, Lenina's traumatized, and we're left wondering how these two even ended up on the same trip. Oh, and there's this wild subplot where Bernard realizes his boss's messy backstory might actually connect to someone on the reservation. It's a whole Maury moment waiting to happen. By the end of chapter 6, you're left feeling like you're watching two very different shows mashed together, one about Bernard trying to find himself and one about Lenina trying not to have a mental breakdown. They're both kind of a mess, but that's what makes it fun. So yeah, these chapters are peak Brave New World chaos. Bernard's over here questioning everything, Lenina's just trying to vibe, and Huxley's in the background reminding us that this perfect society is low-key terrifying. It's a wild ride, but hey, at least they're not playing obstacle golf anymore. Alright, my dudes and dudettes, chapters 7 and 8 of Brave New World are where this book stops being just a dystopian freak show and starts serving real drama, like soap opera level drama. We're talking betrayals, identity crises, family tea that's hot enough to burn your tongue. This is some next level stuff. So, let me break it down in a way that'll keep you hooked like the newest season of your favorite Netflix show. Picture this, Bernard and Lenina are still out at the Savage Reservation, and it's like they've wandered into a whole different planet. Lenina, queen of being perpetually uncomfortable, is out here clutching her pearls because everything's giving ew. Dirt roads? EW. Flies? EW. Actual old people? WEW. And then they roll up on this village that's straight out of ancient history. We're talking mud huts, people dressed in colorful handmade clothes, and rituals that make Lena's chemically conditioned brain glitch harder than a laggy video game. And oh boy, the ritual they stumble into is a whole production. Imagine a live-action Attack on Titan scene, but instead of titans, it's just regular people getting whipped and bleeding everywhere. Yeah, these villagers are deep into a ceremony where a young dude gets smacked around as some kind of sacrifice to their gods. Bernard's sitting there like, interesting, while Lena is spiraling. She's used to her squeaky clean, no pain allowed lifestyle, so seeing blood is like watching a horror movie in 4K. She starts popping Soma like it's Skittles to calm herself down, but even that's not helping. Enter John, aka the Savage, with a capital S. This dude is the main character energy we didn't know we needed. He's this tall, scruffy, blonde guy who's been living on the reservation but clearly doesn't fit in with the locals. He looks like he walked out of a medieval fantasy movie, but plot twist, he speaks English. Lena's first reaction? OMG, he's hot. Typical. Bernard, on the other hand, is like, yo, what's your deal, and this is where things get juicy. John spills his backstory, and oh my Ford, it's a doozy. Turns out, his mom is Linda, a beta from the world state who got left behind on the reservation years ago. Remember when the director, Bernard's boss, mentioned losing someone on a trip to the reservation? Yeah, Linda's that someone. She was accidentally stranded here after getting injured and was too ashamed to return to the world state pregnant because, gasp, having a baby there is about as socially acceptable as eating pineapple on pizza during a serious food debate. Linda, used to the luxury of the world state, has been struggling to survive in the reservation. Imagine trying to go from a world of Soma and high-tech showers to a place where you have to, like, cook your own food and deal with mosquitoes. She's had a rough time, to say the least, and the locals aren't exactly friendly to her. They see her as this scandalous outsider because she's still clinging to her world state habits, like sleeping around without understanding that here, relationships actually mean something. Linda's whole vibe screams messy in bold, neon letters. And poor John? This dude's had it rough. The villagers bully him for being different, he's lighter-skinned, he doesn't fit in, and he's the product of a world he's never even seen. His childhood was basically one long string of rejection, loneliness, and feeling like the side character in someone else's story. To cope, John's been binging Shakespeare like it's a lifeline. Yup, this guy quotes Hamlet and The Tempest like he's auditioning for drama club, and honestly? It slaps. Shakespeare's all about love, betrayal, and existential angst, so it's perfect for someone trying to make sense of his messy life. But let's backtrack to the drama of John's birth. Linda straight up told him that she came from the world state and used to live the dream life with Soma and all-you-can-eat pleasure. John, on the other hand, grew up in the dirt, feeling like an NPC in his own story. He's never been part of the world state, but he dreams about it like it's some kind of mythical paradise. Linda's stories made it sound like Disneyland, minus the mouse ears, and John's been desperate to see it for himself. The whole time he's talking, Bernard's sitting there like, yo, this guy might be my ticket out of this reservation hellscape. And John's got more tea to spill. He tells Bernard about the time he tried to join the village boys in their coming-of-age ceremony, but they rejected him. Imagine being that kid on the playground who's always picked last for dodgeball, but multiply that by 1,000. It crushed him, but instead of wallowing, John went full emo and found solace in Shakespeare. The guy's got Macbeth monologues on lock, and it's his way of coping with the mess that is his life. Now Bernard, ever the opportunist, starts connecting the dots. He's like, hold up, your mom's Linda? The director's Linda, and he immediately sees this as a way to stick it to his boss. Bernard's been low-key salty ever since the director threatened to exile him, and now he's got receipts in the form of John and Linda. He invites them to come back to the world state with him, and John's over the moon. This is his shot at finally seeing the world he's been dreaming about, the place his mom always talked about. Meanwhile, Lena's over there side-eyeing John like, he's kinda weird, but also kinda cute, which is peak Lenina behavior. As the chapter wraps up, Bernard's plotting his revenge, John's quoting Shakespeare like he's about to drop a mixtape, and Lena's just trying to survive without running out of Soma. It's a perfect storm of personalities, and you can feel the tension building. The stage is set for some next-level drama, and you just know things are about to pop off when they get back to the world state. So there you have it, John's tragic backstory, Bernard's petty revenge plans, and Lena's ongoing struggle to deal with anything outside her comfort zone. Chapters 7 and 8 are giving major stranger in a strange land vibes, but with enough plot twists to keep you hooked. Trust me, you're gonna want to see how this plays out.